Writing sub-plans is no joke. Most teachers say they would rather not even take the day because they don't want to write those sub-plans. That is why in today's video, I am sharing some tips to make planning for a sub easier. Plus, I even have a few tips on how to help your sub be a little more successful when they're in your classroom. If you're new here, I'm Rachel Vincent, and I share tips on running effective and efficient classrooms so that you can get more done and still have time to teach. Typically, the only subs I have are ones I plan for. I don't have kids, so I don't tend to be out often unexpectedly. But having some of these in place will help you if you do. Put this emoji in the comments if you have ever had to write subplans. The first thing that makes writing subplans a little bit easier is to keep your routines. Sometimes we think that because we're not going to be there, we need to just give busy work. But keeping your routines, first of all, makes it easier for your students because they know what to expect. It also helps with some of those behavior issues that may arise because they're just working on worksheets. When I create plans and I know I'm going to be out, I try my best to keep it with what we're already doing that week, even with the standards. Now, it may not be exactly what I would teach, but I find a simple lesson that I think anybody could teach to students that's not too complicated, that still has students learning what we would typically be learning that week. Now, it may be not exactly the way I teach it. It might be a worksheet instead of a game, or it might be a digital activity instead of something I would do with just my students. So you can adapt it to make it work for you, but keeping your routines makes it easier to plan and easier for your students. The next thing is to have templates to help you with your sub plans. I like to use a sub notebook where I keep all of the important information. I adjust it at the beginning of each school year with class lists and seating charts and all that, so that when it's time, all I have to do is pull out that notebook and just give a few little tweaks and it's ready to go. The same thing with my actual plans. I have a template, so I pull up one that I've done before, adjust it a little bit, put in some of the new things or the activity that they're doing, but it stays the same so that every time I have to write subplans, it doesn't take me hours and hours. It just takes me a little bit of time to adjust what we're doing so that all I have to do is just type and repeat. The next thing you want to make sure you do to not only help your sub, but think about it this way. If you're simplifying the lessons that you're having your sub teach, they're not going to take as long as they normally would when you do it. And more often than not, you're probably not going to have your sub do small groups, although you could. I typically don't. So I have extra time to fill, so I like to overplan. I like to give way more than the sub will actually use to make sure that they have plenty of stuff to do. And then I even leave extra work that I don't plan for, but just worksheets and things like that, some of that busy work to help them if they need it throughout the day. You want to make sure that you empower your sub to be able to do things in your classroom. We all know that in the last few years that finding subs has been difficult. Some of the subs coming into our buildings may not have all of the tricks and tips and ways to keep students engaged and following rules. So give your sub ways to do that. I like to offer extra behavior incentives for my sub to use to give to students who are following directions and working hard. When you have a sub, they kind of need that because students automatically think they can behave differently when there's a substitute in the room. I leave notes in my plans to tell the substitute if the students are doing a great job, you can have them work together. Or if it's a partner activity that I say in the plans and I say, if they can't work well together, they can do this independently. Tell the substitute they have options to change. If I say, if they're doing a great job, allow them a little bit of extra free time. I sort of put that in the plans to allow the sub to sort of adjust it as they need. As teachers, we adjust all day long, so make sure you empower your sub to do the same. If you're able to, you want to communicate with your students that you are going to be out and your expectations for their behavior is going to be the same with the sub even though you're not there. I also like to tell my students that because there's a different adult in the room, they're going to do things a little bit different. So if they do something different, it's okay, and you should not argue with the sub and tell the sub that's not how we do it unless they ask for you to help them. And of course, in my sub plans, I'm leaving students' names who I know will be honest and truthful and be actual helpful to the substitute. And with that, I also like to give the substitute extra incentives above and beyond what I normally do. We use Class Dojo in our room as far as our class store and job helpers and extra points. So I allow my sub to give points to students who are doing a great job. But I also give extra incentives that I don't normally do. I have sub tickets that my sub can give out to students who go above and beyond that day. I've done the charts where they fill in like a sprinkle on a donut. If they get so many sprinkles, then I'll bring them donuts the next day. Any kind of extra incentive to help, because we all know that students aren't going to behave the way that they behave with you. So empowering your sub again, giving them extra ways to help their day run smooth. If you'd like to make landing for a sub even easier, I have the templates to my sub notebook in the description box below over on TPT, where you can just download it and plug in your information and you will be ready to go for when you have a sub.